The one, yeah.
No, we have only air shut here.
No, he was.
It's behind me.
No, it was not behind before it was.
Yeah, of course.
And this, I was resolving this for the not at this night. We cannot do it. Honestly.
In this commission, we have two ladies. Hey! Assalamu alaikum. We went through hell.
Please, thank you.
Okay, chef. Okay.
We need to announce it, get people out of the front. It's overflowing right now. We need to get people to stand up, to move outside. Maybe when the presidents come.
Yeah. We must go out. We just fica assim, né?
Because they,
Is that 4:30 or what? Because they've told the
We're
chair.
going to need security to clear
Who?
security.
Yes, let us.
but
Are you calling?
is he sorti
Oui, des partis pour aller.
Please, can we kindly request security to clear the front row here? Security, can you help us to clear in front here so that you move everybody out and leave only heads of states, please?
It's been half an hour to say this. I know, but someone, one of the come here and then say silence and that's all.
The venue is too small. But at the same time,
Big chief. Don't do that now, because the chair is with President of Brazil. So when he comes, inform the. Yeah, but I don't know, there has been a miscommunication or whatever. He was told at 4:30. No, he's just for 5-10 minutes with the President of Brazil and he's coming. I just called, yeah.
You didn't go?
Where? No, you didn't tell me anything. How do I go? President has money.
please, can we have some silence?
And they should stand.
Please, can you stand up as the President of the Union walks in?
No, they sit after he sits. Yes. He has to sit for them to sit. Okay.
Thank you. You may be seated.
We know, sir. Thank you.
He's a minister and he's the chair. He's the minister.
Please, can you clear the front space for His Excellency to enter? Kindly, if you can rise for His Excellency.
We still have to decongest the front.
Please, can you take your seats? Can we clear the space between the first row and the podium? Please.
No, Faki said we can start.
That was a while ago. No, but that was a while ago.
first person will be. Adesina is not here, but let us go to.
coming at 5. It's coming at 5.
No, then we start with them. This one, yeah.
With the commissioner, it's better you have a pen.
Yeah, and I have a pen. We start here. Is here, UNECA.
Yes.
UNECA. Number
Cancel this one.
Musa.
Let the Musa arrive.
He's coming, but you know, I'm just putting it aside.
Let me check with Zambia. Then Madagascar is here.
Madagascar is.
This one is
This one is here.
this is
Seychelles.
Madagascar. That was Seychelles. Madagascar is here. That is coming.
Macky Sall, we put him here.
Yes, I think it is here. Can't keep him waiting for others.
Yeah.
Let me see. That's
Suzuki start. Yeah.
Your Excellencies, we can start with the program for today. May I kindly appeal for silence? Your Excellencies, please. Can we stop some movements? Your Excellencies, our heads of state and government, honorable ministers present, as well as Excellencies, ambassadors and high commissioners, Excellencies, commissioners, CEO of NEPAD and all other dignitaries, would want to start with the session for today. And on that note, I've got the honor to invite Her Excellency, Ambassador Josepha Sako, Commissioner for Agriculture, Rural Development, Blue Economy, and Sustainable Environment of the African Union Commission, who will be moderating this session. Your Excellency, over to you.
Thank you for giving me the floor. Good afternoon, Excellencies. Bon après-midi. Boa tarde a todos. Let's call the meeting to an order. Excellencies, Head of States and Government, Honorable Ministers, Excellencies, Head of International Organizations, my colleagues, commissioners, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols duly observed. I will also like to welcome Your Excellencies to the African Day and to thank you most sincerely for accepting the invitation and for setting aside time despite your busy COP28 to join us. I know that all your agenda is very busy and crowded, but you had time to come to the Africa Day because this is our day, so we need to really be here, speak in one voice, common position, and then drive our agenda of environment. My name, for those that don't know me, I am Ambassador Josepha Leonel Correa Sako, Commissioner for Agriculture, Rural Development, Blue Economy, and Sustainable Environment. As he takes the floor, as I take the floor, sorry, I forgot. I will be the moderator of the opening segment of this meeting, just the opening segment. With this, let me invite His Excellency Claver Gatete, United Nations Under Secretary General and Executive Secretary of Economic Commission for Africa, UNECA. Over to you, my brother, you have the floor.
Your Excellency, Mr. Azari Asmani, President of the Republic of Comoros and the Chairperson of the African Union, Excellencies, heads of state and government who are here present, commissioners, dear colleagues, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. As we gather here today at the COP28, we are faced with a critical challenge that demands our unwavering attention and concerted effort, the imperative to scale up finance for climate action and green growth in Africa. The first global stocktake under the Paris Agreement highlights the need for increased commitment to prevent a warming of close to 3 degrees Celsius. Unfortunately, Africa contributes less than 4% of global greenhouse gas emissions, but is most vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. This has led to a significant impact on our economies. On average, we are experiencing 5% loss of GDP annually, with some countries experiencing loss up to 15%. Additionally, some of our nations are compelled to allocate unplanned budgets up to 9% to mitigate the impact of extreme weather conditions. At COP28 and beyond, countries must respond to the global stocktake with increased mitigation and climate finance ambition, a fully operational and funded loss and damage fund, enhanced commitments to significantly increase adaptation funding, and support for just and equitable transitions that speaks to Africa's special needs and circumstances. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we recognize that the scale of investment required to address climate change far exceeds the current levels of funding available, particularly for adaptation and resilience, which requires investments to the tune of 87 billion annually, US dollars, according to the Africa Group of Negotiators. We must seize the many mitigation opportunities available to us to secure a sustainable future for the continent. Above all, it is incumbent upon us to take decisive action. We must mobilize resources and channel investments towards climate resilient and low-carbon development pathways. This requires a fundamental shift in how we approach finance, embracing innovative mechanisms and partnerships that unlock the necessary resources for sustainable development in Africa. To achieve this, we need to explore ways to leverage Africa's own resources and capital markets, while also advocating for a revamp of the global financial system to better serve Africa's needs. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to highlight 4 ways in which Africa can take advantage of its resources and strategic collaborations to finance climate action and green growth. First, we must prioritize investments in the deployment of the continent's abundant renewable energy resources and the transformation of its critical minerals to develop regional and global clean energy value chains. With an estimated growth of the battery and electric vehicle market to the tune of 8.8 trillion by 2025 and 48 trillion by 2050, Africa must move fast to capture this market. This was indicated by the study by the Bloomberg recently. The cooperation framework between the DRC and Zambia that the ECA, African Union Commission, Afreximbank, Africa Development Bank, AFC, and BADEA facilitated aimed at establishing a transboundary special economic zone for the development of a battery and electric vehicle value chain is an indication that Africa is on the right track. Second, we must focus on scaling up innovative financing mechanisms, such as the ECA's SDG 7 initiative, which has made it possible to issue a green bond worth 3 billion rands in local currency for investments in renewable energy projects in South Africa. Third, there is a great potential in developing the African carbon market, carbon credit market to unlock additional green financing for Africa. Africa's research shows that at $120 per ton of carbon, nature-based carbon credits could generate 82 billion on the annual basis, which is about 1.5 times the amount of money that we get in terms of the official development aid. But it's not important that we exercise caution when it comes to relying on voluntary carbon credits from nature-based solutions as a key source of climate finance in Africa. Instead, we must equip our member states with the necessary data-driven evidence to gain a better understanding of the nuances and risks involved with this approach. We must address the asymmetry between demand and supply to ensure that Africa's participation in carbon markets involves a high integrity of credits and is increasing. In view of this, ECA is supporting the Climate Commission of the Congo Basin to develop a carbon registry and protocols for transparency. Furthermore, our African Climate Policy Center supports capacity strengthening on Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. Fourth, the need to develop and roll out a pipeline of bankable projects on the continent cannot be overemphasized. The UN Regional Commission's collaboration with the Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero and the UN Climate Change High-Level Champion to scale up the pipeline of bankable climate projects is making progress, but more needs to be done to attract funding for large and transformative projects. In Africa, we are working with the African Union Commission to enhance the bankability of PIDA projects under this initiative. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as I end my remarks, my call to you is the urgency to focus on how we can support, scale up, and connect these Africa-driven initiatives and identify and address barriers for action. The decisions we make here today will reverberate for generations to come. We have the opportunity to work together to demonstrate our collective resolve, vision, and solidarity as a continent at the United Nations Summit of the Future next year. I thank you so much for your kind attention.
Thank you, Ambassador Kadete, and thanks for those remarks. I will now like to give the floor to His Excellency Weval Ramkalawan, the President of the Republic of Seychelles and the Chair of the African Island Climate Commission. Over to you, Excellency.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. My good friend from the Comoros, the Chair of the African Union, heads of state, ladies and gentlemen, ministers, all protocol observed. I mean, there are so many important people in this hall that it's very difficult to go through the list, but a very warm welcome. As you can see on the list, I was not supposed to be speaking as number 2. There were a lot of other people who were supposed to speak before me, but anyway, we'll catch up eventually. But let me, on this Africa Day, first of all, start by congratulating our brother from Madagascar, President Rajoel, who is the only president-elect in our hall today, and we want to congratulate you, our dear brother from the Indian Ocean, and as a fellow island boy, we want to say the Indian Ocean will continue to work together, and we'll be there on the 16th to support you. The topic that we are addressing today, the question of finance, is of course one which is very important, especially for us, islands of Africa. Too often when we talk about Africa, we refer directly to the continent. And we forget that Africa is also made up of a number of islands. And I don't want to blow our trumpet too big, but too loudly. But the islands of Africa are doing very well. In fact, when we look, be it at governance, the Mo Ibrahim Index, which we use as our standard, we realize that the islands of Africa lead by example. And therefore, we play a very important role. Thus, we have to see how mainland Africa and the islands of Africa can come together to really work together in order to face the challenges that the continent, that poses challenges to the continent. And as chair of the African Island States Climate Commission, of course, we realize that climate change has a direct effect on our islands, and these effects are really bad on the one hand, but they also cause a lot of economic damage to those very islands. But yet, and again, this is a point that I always try to make. Some of the islands of the African continent of Africa are the ones that have been classified as high income. And what does that mean? We do not qualify to access concessionary funding. And yet islands are special. And African islands are indeed very special. Yesterday, I was participating in a high-level discussion, and the person who spoke before me was the Prime Minister of Malta. And the issues that he was addressing are the very same issues that we face in Africa as island states. But I had to say to him, the only difference is you have a union, the European Union, that has the funds that will be ready to support you as an island state. But we have the African Union, and we do not have money. And this makes a big difference. And this is why I believe we have to stand together as one, the continent plus the island states. We've just heard about the operationalization of the Loss and Damage Fund. But I want us also to think seriously as African states. This is a fund that will be replenished on a voluntary basis. There is no commitment on the part of those who are big and those who have helped to destroy Africa. We recognize that Africa is the continent that emits less gases that destroy the planet. And the fund is based on the voluntary contributions of those countries. Of course, we say thank you to the UAE and to Germany for the $100 million that both of them have placed in the fund. But the question is, how sustainable will that fund be? Because there's nothing that is concrete. And at the same time, when the mechanisms, which today are not very clear, as to how we, African states and African islands, how are we going to access those funds? Nothing is clear, and already we are hearing that countries that are labeled high income will not have access to those funds. We are hearing that there will be discrimination. You will need to be, if you're an island, if you're not in the cyclone belt or in a position where other natural calamities hit you, then you may not be considered. So these are some of the issues that I believe not only we as island states have to address, but we also have to address this as a continent. It must feature very highly on the agenda of the African Union. We've been talking about the MVI, and the Commonwealth, to which many African countries belong, has been talking about the universal dimensional agency, or the way of doing things. They talk about the UVI and not the MVI. But again, brothers and sisters, I want us to take those multilateral financial institutions to task. We need to tell them we have to access the concessionary financing, because we as Africa, we are not only cleaning up, Africa as a continent cleans up the mess that we produce, but we are also cleaning up the mess of the world. And therefore, we need to be in a position where we can insist that concessionary funding is accessible to the whole of Africa. And this is how we are going to be able to resolve some of the climate issues. This is how we're going to be able to move forward. We're going to be able to protect our coastline. We're going to protect the beauty of our islands. And remember, when we go into poverty, and this is something I mentioned, and I think it was, I keep quoting President Macky Sall, when he said very clearly, look, the West may tell us to protect the rosewood tree or to protect this, that, and the other, but when the African man and family go hungry, they will not bother as to whether this tree is important to nature. They will fight for survival. And this is why we insist that it has to be a partnership. So, as chair of the island states of Africa, I am very encouraged by the participation of all members. We're hoping to have a meeting of the ministers. We've had a meeting in the Seychelles, and the commitment is there because we all face the same issues. We are all facing the same challenges. And we know what happens. When we are faced with those challenges, money that is supposed to go into education, into health, into the youth, into sports, and into improving the standard of living for our people, go towards environment protection. And I can say that because right now in the Seychelles, we are facing the brunt of climate change. The rise in sea level is not just a theory. The rise in sea level is a reality for us islanders. So even as I speak now, we've realized that for our NDC, we will need around 600 million USD in the next 10 years. And what does that represent? It represents 5% of GDP. It represents 10% of the annual budget of the country. And that's money that could have been put in education and in other areas which would help raise the standard of living of our people and would make us a better African country. So thank you very much, Madam Chair, and I'm sure that as Africa, we will ensure that our commitment grows from strength to strength, and the 1.5 degrees Celsius target, even though many countries are now, even though the world now is going in the opposite direction, but I'm sure that we as Africans will take this commitment seriously, and we will continue to help protect our one and only planet. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Excellency President. I will now invite His Excellency André Renina Jolini. You're not? Then I will pass to the next speaker. Excellency, let me invite now His Excellency Macky Sall to deliver his speech. President of Senegal, our former President of African Union. Soyez le bienvenu, Excellence.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much, Commissioner. Merci beaucoup. Tout d'abord, je salue Monsieur le Président de l'Union des Comores et Président de l'Union africaine, Monsieur Azali Osmani, qui fut mon marabout, mais qui m'a boycotté maintenant. Je voudrais également saluer le président des Seychelles, le président André Rajoelina, que je félicite pour sa brillante victoire. Et je félicite également le peuple malgache. Je salue les éminentes personnalités ici présentes, la Commission, les membres de la Commission, le secrétaire exécutif de la CEA, chers concitoyens africains en cette journée de l'Afrique. Nous sommes à Dubaï pour la COP28 avec des sujets importants sur le climat, des sujets importants également sur la transition climatique, sur la forêt, sur les îles, sur la planète de façon générale. Et on constatera que l'Afrique, comme d'habitude, est le parent pauvre sur la distribution des richesses. L'Afrique, malgré une faible participation dans le réchauffement climatique, parce que nous le savons, nous sommes une société qui n'est pas industrialisée, et donc notre contribution dans le réchauffement est inférieure à 4%, et pourtant déjà nous sommes très fortement engagés pour l'action climatique dans tous nos pays. Quand vous voyez les efforts qui sont consentis par les gouvernements africains pour protéger la côte, pour lutter contre la désertification, pour réduire les gaz à effet de serre au prix d'un endettement souvent très élevé et pour développer des projets verts, notamment dans les projets de transport, dans les mobilités collectives, vous voyez que nous payons un prix fort pour préserver notre planète. Alors tout ce que nous demandons, c'est que cet effort soit accompagné pour nous éviter d'emprunter les mêmes voies qui ont mis la planète dans son état actuel. C'est-à-dire que l'Afrique a un besoin légitime de développement. L'Afrique a un besoin légitime d'industrialisation. Cette industrialisation, ce besoin en développement, saluons le président de la Commission, Moussa Faki. Je disais donc que l'Afrique a un besoin légitime d'industrialisation pour faire partie des chaînes de valeur mondiales. Au lieu d'être un réservoir de matières premières, nous devons bannir cette politique. Depuis très longtemps, depuis des siècles, l'Afrique n'a été qu'un réservoir pourvoyeurs de matières premières, minérales, forestières, océanographiques, halieutiques. Il nous faut transformer ces matériaux, il nous faut transformer pour donner de la valeur ajoutée et pour donner des emplois à la jeunesse du continent. Donc c'est là l'enjeu fondamental, le financement de cette industrialisation qui passe nécessairement par la disponibilité d'une énergie bon marché, d'une énergie certes verte, mais ne tombons pas dans le piège simplement du tout vert pour vraiment enjamber les réalités de l'Afrique aujourd'hui. C'est-à-dire que l'Afrique doit bénéficier d'une transition énergétique juste et on doit accompagner cette transition énergétique. Donc, il faut que nos partenaires sur cette question soient assez corrects avec nous pour accompagner la transformation vers l'économie décarbonée. On ne peut pas du jour au lendemain être dans une économie décarbonée. On a besoin de cette transition. On a besoin aussi de financements adéquats pour valoriser tout le potentiel renouvelable du continent. Il est énorme, ce potentiel. Que ce soit l'hydroélectricité. Rien que Inga 3 pourrait éclairer la moitié du continent. Mais c'est près de plus de 40 gigas d'électricité. Ça demande énormément de ressources, plus de 20-30 milliards de dollars d'investissement. Donc il faut mobiliser la communauté internationale et les partenaires, y compris partenaires privés, sur la valorisation de ce potentiel d'énergie renouvelable sur le continent, tout en accompagnant les énergies fossiles de transition, notamment le gaz, et pouvoir être au rendez-vous de 2050-2055. Quoique c'est de la seule façon que nous pourrons réussir notre industrialisation, que nous pourrons donner l'emploi à notre jeunesse qui n'a pas vocation à aller périr dans la Méditerranée ou à se retrouver en Europe ou aux États-Unis. L'avenir de la jeunesse africaine, c'est sur le continent africain. Donc moi, ce plaidoyer, c'est ce que je voulais dire. Et pour terminer, je voudrais dire un mot sur la Grande Muraille Verte, qui est un projet majeur du continent, aujourd'hui adoubé par tout le monde. Je salue également la fondation de la Grande Muraille Verte, l'Union africaine, et tous les partenaires pour dire qu'il faut orienter nos actions et éviter la dispersion aussi des initiatives afin que ce projet majeur qui va de Dakar à Djibouti, maintenant il y a une seconde muraille, c'est normal, il faut même plusieurs autres murailles vertes sur le continent. Jusque-là c'était est-ouest, mais il faut nord-sud, pourquoi pas, pour entourer notre continent vraiment de cette ceinture verte qui a pour vocation de freiner la désertification. Nous avons deux grands déserts dans le continent, le désert du Sahara et le désert du Kalahari. Donc il faut freiner l'avancée de ces déserts, il faut reboiser, il faut surtout donner une perspective économique pour les populations qui vivent dans ces zones semi-désertiques à désertiques. Donc financer leur activité d'agro-sylvopastorale, financer la sylviculture dans ces zones, financer surtout les femmes et leur donner une autonomisation et financer les jeunes pour leur donner des perspectives d'emploi. Voilà en très peu de mots ce que je voulais dire en cette journée, en félicitant, en saluant le président de la commission, Moussa Faki Mahamad, ainsi que l'ensemble des commissaires et notre très grand président, grand dans l'esprit, dans la fonction, mais petit par la taille. Monsieur le Président, je vous remercie.
Merci beaucoup, Excellence, pour votre discours vraiment très élucidant, très orientant. Et nous avons pris bonne note de ce que vous nous avez présenté. Vous avez présenté la transition énergétique. Et nous, en tant que commissaires, quand on est dans des plateformes pareilles, on essaie de dire oui, on doit avoir la transition énergétique Just Transition. Donc, nous prenons bonne note de votre conseil. Nous avons le gaz, nous avons le fuel, mais allons doucement. Comme on dit en Swahili, pole pole. Comme on dit à Lingala, malembe malembe. On va aller là-bas, mais avec le temps, parce que ça prend des investissements dans les énergies renouvelables. Et vous avez parlé aussi de la Grande Muraille Verte. Ça, c'est le bébé de l'Union africaine. En 2006, vous, les chefs d'État, vous avez initié la Grande Muraille Verte. Et aujourd'hui, où est la Grande Muraille Verte? Elle se trouve chez les partenaires. Amenons-les à la maison et allons planter du Cap Vert jusqu'au Somalie. Nous allons planter nos arbres. Vous avez aussi parlé du financement. Oui, l'accord, la déclaration de Nairobi nous dit le financement. Ils nous disent de changer de narratif pour que le financement sur le climat doit être un fait. Et nous sommes en train de travailler avec tous nos partenaires, avec les États membres pour voir si on peut avoir accès au financement. Je vous remercie, Excellence. Sur ce, je veux inviter Son Excellence, mon patron, le président Moussa Faki Mohamed, pour venir présenter son discours. Merci.
Merci, Madame la Commissaire. J'avoue qu'il est très difficile de prendre la parole après le président Macky Sall, toujours pertinent et éloquent. Mais je vais m'essayer quand même. Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, permettez-moi, à titre liminaire, d'exprimer ma joie de me trouver ici aujourd'hui parmi vous en cet espace d'Afrique, le pavillon africain de la COP28. C'est le lieu et le moment d'exprimer nos remerciements au gouvernement et au peuple des Émirats arabes unis pour l'accueil chaleureux qui nous a été tous réservé et pour les excellentes conditions de tenue de cette grande conférence. Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, la centralité des questions de l'environnement et des conditions climatiques qui enveloppent le monde et l'Afrique, en particulier, passe de tout commentaire. Qu'est-ce qui n'a pas été dit? Tout ou presque a été dit. Nous sommes à la 28e conférence des parties sur le climat. Les problèmes sont toujours les mêmes et je crains fort que les discours soient restés aussi les mêmes. Permettez-moi, tout en restant particulièrement sobre, de mettre en relief 4 remarques. La première est celle du constat que l'Afrique, considérée comme un pollueur mineur de la planète, est inversement proportionnelle au continent, dont les avantages en matière d'investissement dans le climat demeurent les plus modestes. Cette étrangeté atteste d'une injustice, encore une autre, dirais-je, vis-à-vis de l'Afrique. Il est de la plus haute importance que le jour de l'Afrique mette sans embâche cette injustice en relief. Notre message ici doit être sans ambiguïté. La deuxième remarque est relative aux investissements financiers en Afrique et de la part des conditions climatiques là-dedans. Sans vouloir avancer des chiffres, force est de remarquer que cette part demeure une part congrue. Notre plaidoyer ici, pour l'avoir augmenté, ne devrait pas faiblir. C'est le deuxième message que cette journée devrait envoyer avec toute la force de nos voix conjuguées. La troisième remarque est relative à notre conception du lien entre la transition et l'adaptation. Il est clair aujourd'hui que le vue de l'Afrique sur cette thématique ne coïncide pas forcément avec celle de certains de nos partenaires. Il est fondamental que des négociations sérieuses s'ouvre sur ces questions pour dégager un consensus pratique là-dessus. C'est le troisième message qu'il est souhaitable que cette journée d'Afrique envoie au reste de la planète. Enfin, je voudrais, et c'est ma quatrième remarque, mettre en relief notre forte référence à la déclaration de Nairobi. Il ne sert à rien d'adopter des déclarations solennelles et de s'en détacher par la suite. En matière environnementale, la déclaration de Nairobi doit être et doit demeurer notre credo. Elle est notre référence en la matière et à ce titre, la journée de l'Afrique doit être la journée de notre attachement unanime à notre déclaration. L'Afrique n'aura aucune force, nulle part, si elle oublie un seul instant que sa chance est toujours, en toutes circonstances, dans son expression d'une seule voix. Je vous remercie.
Merci beaucoup, Excellence, Monsieur le Président. Je note la présence de Dr Adesina, le président de la BAD. My dear brother, classmate, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, my dear classmate. Your Excellency, Monsieur le Président, Excellence, le Président de la Commission de l'Union africaine, Excellence, the very new Executive Secretary of the Economic Commission for Africa, the Economic Commissioner for Agriculture, Economic Commissioner for Infrastructure, Energy, and other things. Yeah. Your Excellency, President Macky Sall, Your Excellency, Presidents that are here, thank you very much. Sorry that I came in late because I was on a different panel. It's a real delight to be here with my colleagues as we celebrate Africa Day. And Africa has always to be celebrated. You know, and there are very many reasons why we should be always excited about Africa. Everything we have is in abundance. And take a look at our population. 1.4 billion people. It's going to go to 2.4 billion people. That's a market that you cannot ever ignore. When you take a look at what is happening today in terms of our deposits for metals, minerals and metals that are needed to power green transition, all that we are talking about, most of those are in Africa, whether it is platinum, whether it's copper, whether it is cobalt, or whether it is lithium. It's in Africa in abundance. So really, what Africa does with those renewable those metals will determine the future of electric cars in the world. And the size of that market will go from $7 trillion today to $57 trillion by 2050. Third, nobody smokes gas, nobody drinks oil, but everybody eats food. And therefore, what Africa has 65% of all the uncultivated arable land left to feed 9.5 billion people in the world by 2050. Again, what Africa does with agriculture will determine the future of food in the world. And I want to use this particular time to really thank President, Chair of the African Union, President of Comoros, President Macky Sall, and of course, my dear brother, the Chairperson, Musa Faki, and the Commissioner for Agriculture for what we were able to show in terms of what Africa can do in feeding itself when we had the Dakar II Summit. And in that Dakar II Summit, the heads of state and government came there, and our determination was very clear, that Africa will not and will never again be begging for food. There's no way. We must be a powerhouse in food and agriculture. And I'm delighted to say that thanks to your head of states and governments, we have food and agriculture delivery compacts for which we were able to mobilize to date $72 billion to implement that. I think if you don't have confidence in Africa, let that number hit you. That is actually very, very important. President Macky Sall always talks about the issue of risk and the fact that our risks are very high, passive risk, but the real risks are not as bad as that. Those who know Africa is not as risky. But don't believe me because I'm very optimistic about Africa. Just believe what the data says. Believe the facts. We actually had an assessment that was done, to look at the infrastructure. Infrastructure is a major issue. Now, if we want to close the $68 to $108 billion annual financing gap for infrastructure, we've got to be bankable. The risk of investment must be low, and the risk of default must be low. Well, everybody thinks that the risk of default is high in Africa. Absolutely not. There was a study that was done by Moody's Analytics, and that result actually looked at 14 years of cumulative losses in terms of infrastructure investment. What did they find? Africa has the least in terms of non-performing loans on infrastructure. Africa is bankable, and that's why we should be proud of who we are, be proud of our continent. And the last thing I want to say before I go and sit down is that the best thing that will happen to us in this continent is our young people. Take a look at it. 477 million of them between the ages of 15 and 25. And these people are going to be the ones with creativity, with the ideas that are going to drive fintech, that are driving creative industries, that are driving food and agriculture. These are the ones that are going to be the wealth creators of our continent. But sometimes when we look at them and they go on Mediterranean Sea and they die, our hearts bleed. But I just want to say that as we celebrate Africa Day, let's make it Africa Day for the young people of this continent. Because the truth be told, they are not the tomorrows of Africa. They are the todays of Africa. And generally when I go around and I ask, we have a lot of youth empowerment programs. I want to just urge, let's take a look at these young people as assets, not risks. And let's begin to invest in them, invest in them, invest in them. That's why I would like to say on this Africa Day that the African Development Bank believes in Africa's youth. And therefore, that's why we are establishing what's called Youth Entrepreneurship Investment Banks. New financial institutions that will create new ecosystems that will not see the young people of Africa as risk, but will see them as assets. That will allow them to have access to finance with dignity for their businesses to grow it. Why is it that the fintech industry in Africa, the unicorns, we have 7 of them, are financed by private equity funds from outside of Africa? Only 1% of that private equity financing comes from Africa. No. We should put our capital at risk behind our young people, because if we don't, then we ourselves are at risk. I want to commend our African heads of state and government. Thank you for the tremendous leadership. Thank you for everywhere we go in the world. You stand, your voice, your presence, your determination. Africa, because of you, can no longer be ignored. And I just want to say that if you didn't realize it, that where the powerhouse is going to be on investment, just think of the following. We had the African Investment Forum just 3 weeks ago in Morocco. And we were able to mobilize $34.84 billion of investment interest to Africa in less than 72 hours. So believe in Africa, trust in Africa, let's rise. Poverty will not be our destination. We must be a nation of wealth, and let's do everything to develop with pride. With our leaders, with the African Union Commission, I know, and you, the young people, and the women of Africa in particular. Yes, I think when women in Africa wins, Africa will win. Thank you very much. It's good to be here.
Thank you, President Adesina. I think you really... Thank you, Dr. Adesina. Thank you for your statement. You really say what we have to know, and making advocacy of the wealth that this continent has. Let us make noise, because Africa is really the future of tomorrow. It's the future of today, the future of tomorrow, so we should make noise during our African Day. Thank you very much. So now, Komoro is the chair of the African Union, representing the continent on different thematic areas: agriculture, infrastructure, trade. All this is under the purview, the mandate of the President of Komoro. I now have the honor to welcome you, Excellency Azali Assoumani, President of the Republic of Komoro, to deliver your statement and to open officially this day. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Madame. Excellences, mes chers frères et sœurs, chefs de gouvernement et chefs d'État, mon cher frère Moussa Faki, président de la Commission de l'Union africaine, Mesdames et Messieurs, honorables assistance, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Permettez-moi de saisir cette occasion pour féliciter notre frère Rajolina d'avoir été élu à Madagascar dernièrement. Mais nos félicitations vont aussi au pays Madagascar, le pays voisin, pour la réussite de ce scrutin dans un cadre serein et de sécurité. Monsieur Rajolina, vous nous avez donné une très belle leçon parce que les changements anticonstitutionnels qu'on est en train de vivre en Afrique, on doit les bannir. Donc votre réussite est une très belle leçon que vous nous donnez, moi-même et Macky Sall, puisque l'année prochaine on a des élections, en espérant que ça va se passer dans de bonnes conditions pour rehausser l'Afrique et redorer l'Afrique que nous voulons et que nous estimons. Je voudrais à l'entame de mon propos adresser à nouveau, au nom de la délégation comorienne, mes chaleureux et sincères remerciements aux hautes autorités des Émirats arabes unis pour leur accueil fraternel et chaleureux et pour les bonnes dispositions prises afin de rendre notre séjour dans ce beau pays aussi agréable que fructueux. Je tiens également à saluer les hautes personnalités des pays frères et amis et des institutions qui ont bien voulu rehausser de leur présence cet événement de haut niveau consacré à l'Afrique. Qu'il me soit permis dans ce contexte d'exprimer toute ma reconnaissance à l'endroit des pays et des partenaires qui ont accompagné de manière soutenue l'organisation de ce rendez-vous en marge de la COP28. Mesdames et Messieurs, honorables assistances, lorsqu'en 2009, l'Union africaine a décidé de mettre en place le comité des chefs d'État et de gouvernement africains sur le changement climatique, notre organisation a pris toute la mesure des effets du changement climatique et la nécessité de parler d'une seule voix dans les différentes négociations internationales sur le climat. Ainsi, la Journée de l'Afrique, en marge de la conférence des parties sur le changement climatique, est une occasion de réitérer l'importance d'une croissance verte, durable et d'un partenariat innovant pour assurer le financement du climat dans notre continent. Cette plateforme d'échange qui nous offre l'opportunité de consolider nos positions pour une meilleure mobilisation des capitaux internationaux à travers les investissements permettra d'imprimer l'agenda africain dans les conclusions de cette conférence internationale. Je saisis cette opportunité pour féliciter une fois de plus notre frère Ruto, président de la République du Kenya, pour son leadership, pour avoir pris la louable initiative d'accueillir à Nairobi le sommet africain sur le climat en septembre de cette année. La déclaration de Nairobi, qui en est issue, est la preuve que nos pays et notre organisation panafricaine ont relevé dans un esprit de solidarité agissante tous les aspects du développement durable de notre continent et du changement climatique. Cette déclaration, qui reflète la seule voix de l'Afrique sur la scène internationale, a pris en compte les synergies d'une économie verte et bleue afin de ne laisser aucune catégorie de pays à marge de cette dynamique continentale. Cette approche inclusive et participative permet sans nul doute de tirer profit et de protéger les vastes terres arables de notre continent face aux effets du changement climatique. Elle ouvre aussi la voie à l'exploitation, à la préservation de nos espaces lacustres et maritimes en considérant le grand potentiel des 38 États côtiers ou insulaires de l'Union africaine. Mesdames et Messieurs, dans mon discours d'investiture à la présidence de l'Union africaine, j'ai souligné le rôle crucial que doivent jouer les océans et les ressources marines de l'Afrique dans notre agenda climatique, notamment en cette phase du deuxième plan décennal de notre agenda 2063. Je reste convaincu en effet que l'économie bleue, au même titre que l'économie verte, du fait des immenses potentialités que regorge notre continent dans ce domaine, constitue un véritable catalyseur du développement durable de notre continent d'Afrique. Elle représente également un catalyseur de l'accélération de l'ASLECAF, thème de l'Union africaine pour cette année 2023 et dont j'ai l'insigne honneur de veiller à sa mise en œuvre. Cette conviction m'a conduit à faire de la promotion de l'économie bleue et de la contribution des États insulaires et côtiers d'Afrique, cette dynamique, une des priorités de mon mandat dans notre combat collectif en faveur de ce climat. Cette journée de l'Afrique m'offre donc l'opportunité de lancer un appel solennel à une combinaison parfaite et utile du développement vert et bleu dans la droite ligne du processus dit de Moroni, impulsé au mois de juin dernier à Moroni, à l'issue de la conférence ministérielle sur l'économie bleue et l'action climatique. Et c'est l'occasion pour moi de réitérer ma gratitude à mon cher frère Moussa Faki, président de la Commission africaine, et aux différentes délégations qui ont pris part à cet événement. Cette conférence s'est penchée sur la nécessité de repenser la gouvernance maritime mondiale et de s'assurer d'une meilleure prise en compte des préoccupations majeures des États insulaires et côtiers africains dans les forats internationaux sur le climat. Les enjeux globaux liés au climat appellent à plus de mobilisation et de solidarité de la communauté internationale, d'autant plus qu'il y va de sa survie des États insulaires et côtiers dont certains sont déjà confrontés directement aux effets du changement climatique, notamment la montée des eaux. D'ailleurs, en adoptant l'appel de l'action de Moroni en faveur de l'océan et du climat, les États et les institutions présentes ont confirmé l'urgence d'une action d'envergure face aux enjeux climatiques. Les participants à la conférence de Moroni ont reconnu que l'économie bleue peut apporter un souffle novateur à la croissance économique africaine et générer des emplois durables à travers l'utilisation du potentiel marin et halieutique au sein de notre région. Dans cette optique, l'initiative de la Grande Muraille Bleue ou la nouvelle frontière de la Renaissance africaine, l'un des plus grands projets de notre continent, représente une grande opportunité pour l'Afrique dans sa vision de faire de l'économie bleue régénératrice et durable, directement profitable aux communautés. Cette initiative qui demande tout notre soutien au regard de sa capacité d'agir positivement sur les économies trouvera en l'ASLECAF la plateforme idéale pour le développement des chaînes de valeur durables et intégrées. Ceci m'amène, en ma qualité de président en exercice de l'Union africaine et de surcroît président d'un État insulaire, à émettre le vœu que cette rencontre soit l'occasion de convenir à l'institutionnalisation d'un panel de haut niveau dont le principal objectif est de faire le plaidoyer en faveur d'une conciliation systématique de l'économie verte et de l'économie bleue dans l'agenda international de développement. Ainsi, je reste confiant qu'à travers cette combinaison du bleu et du vert, nous porterons ensemble encore plus haut les recommandations des 2 déclarations de Nairobi et de Moroni dans les instances internationales de prise de décision. Et c'est sur cette note d'espérance que je déclare ouverte cette journée africaine. Je vous remercie.
Merci beaucoup, Excellence, pour votre discours. Je suis presque à la fin de ma mission comme modératrice. Donc, on continue avec le programme. Donc, je vais inviter Son Excellence Ramatoulaye Diallo pour venir modérer, mais je crois que Son Excellence le Président Macky Sall a déjà présenté la Grande Muraille Verte. C'est juste 5 minutes avant qu'on passe au suivant point qui est la signature, qui est l'annonce et signature du financement. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Commissaire. Que dire après les éloquents présidents, Monsieur le Président Macky Sall, Monsieur le Président de la Commission Faki, merci infiniment pour la concrétisation de ce vœu qui nous était tellement cher. Monsieur le Président des Comores, Président de l'Union africaine, rien qu'une phrase. Happy Africa Day. You have a lot on your shoulders, and I do not believe that I have any more word to say after President Adesina, after President Faki, after President Macky Sall, and after my sister, the Commissioner, Her Excellency Josepha Sako. So that being said, for the Great Green Wall of Africa, President Macky Sall, you have said it all. So as Baba has also wished with President Tinubu, we will just proceed with the high level until earliest convenience in January. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful Africa Day.
Take the floor. Ask start.
Okay, hello, ladies and gentlemen, our distinguished guests. Can I kindly request you take your seats? We are about to begin the next session, ladies and gentlemen. If we can take our seats. Let's take our seats, ladies and gentlemen, please. Our distinguished guests, the heads of state, kindly remain in the room. we want to transition to the next session, please. Okay, photographers, if you can now step back. We need to begin the next session, please.
Mesdames et messieurs, merci de prendre vos places. Nous allons passer au deuxième acte de l'événement. Nous demandons à leurs excellences les chefs d'État de prendre place et nous demandons aux photographes de dégager la scène, s'il vous plaît. Merci. Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to transition to the next segment. We would like to ask the photographers to leave the front so the heads of state can take their seats. Thank you.
If you say it in French, please. Say it in French.
Mesdames et messieurs, merci de prendre vos places. Les chefs d'État sont priés de rester dans la salle pour la deuxième partie du programme. Merci. Mesdames et messieurs, merci de prendre place. Nous demandons aux photographes de se retirer. We would like to ask the photographers to move away so we can start with the next panel. Thank you. We have an important signing ceremony, so please free the stage. Please, it is not finished. There's part 2 of the program.
Okay, hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm moderating the session for the Alliance. Yes. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, can we get started, please? I know there's so much excitement, but let's get started. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Let's settle down. Photographers, please. Photographers, please, if you can allow us to get started. No. You cannot start this way. It's rude.
Photographers, please take
Calm
your
down.
seat. Photographers, please take your seat. Photographers, please take your seat. Photographers, please take your seat.
Okay, please. All right, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, hello. Hello, can you calm down there, please? Okay, I know you're all getting excited. The chairperson of the African Union, the president of the Union of the Comoros, Your Excellency Azali Assoumani, Your Excellency, the president of Madagascar, Your Excellency Andre Rajoelina, the chairperson of the African Union Commission, Your Excellency Moussa Faki Mahamat, the president of the African Development Bank Group, Dr. Akiumi Adesina, and I know we've got the president of the Islamic Development Bank. He'll be joining us very soon, and other distinguished guests. Ladies and gentlemen, I know you've had a very exciting afternoon. We are drawing close to the end of the day, but welcome to this great afternoon here at COP28 in Dubai. And looking across the room, I know there's so much expectation because there's something warm in the air. Yes, Africa is proud to be endowed with abundant natural resources, resources that are needed to power Africa's and the world's green future, to accelerate the continent's just and equitable transition to net zero while building our resilience to climate change. And all that's needed is investment that will bridge Africa's infrastructure gap in low carbon and sustainable manner. So this is where the Alliance for Green Infrastructure in Africa, AGIA, comes in to prepare and develop a pipeline of bankable, green projects and mobilize billions of private sector financing for green infrastructure in Africa. So today here, we are here to witness the power of partnership, bringing together the African Union, the African Development Bank, Africa 50, the Arab Bank of Economic Development in Africa, BADEA, Banque West Africaine du Développement, Agence Française du Développement, senior government representatives from Germany, France, and Japan. And because you've all been busy, I'll go straight to the first act of the day, and we're going to hear some remarks delivered in a business-style manner. And the first speaker is the chairman of the African Union Commission, Musa Faki Mahamat.
Excellencies, distinguished partners, dear brothers and sisters, I have the honor to represent His Excellency, the chairperson of the African Union. I'm really humbled that he had asked me to deliver a few words on his behalf. So here is how it goes. I am very pleased to be here today to witness the takeoff of the Alliance for Green Infrastructure in Africa, AGIA. I would like to use this opportunity to thank our African Union Infrastructure Department, thank you, sir, the African Development Bank, and the Africa 50 Fund for working tirelessly to reach this important milestone. I wish also to acknowledge the continued efforts of our development partners, the governments of Japan, Germany, Italy, France, and so many others, as well as the international private sector foundations making the takeoff of this alliance a reality. The African Union Agenda 2063 calls for development and provision of sustainable and efficient infrastructure services, which will provide a crucial platform for Africa to promote inclusive growth and economic transformation, facilitate trade, create jobs, and accelerate industrialization and market developments at the national, regional, continental, and global levels. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, for Africa, mainstreaming climate change into infrastructure development is not a matter of choice, but of urgency. Developing infrastructure climate on the continent requires an alliance of all stakeholders, private and public, as well as continental and regional specialized institutions to implement concrete actions. These actions are key, and they are the real expectations of our people and the needs of Africa. It is for this reason that the Alliance for Green Infrastructure in Africa was launched in COP27 with specific goals to mobilize the necessary financing required to redesign a solid pipeline of bankable green infrastructure projects and enhance the resilience of existing infrastructure, of existing and future infrastructure. It is time to witness achievements and that people experience them in their daily lives. Pledges are a demonstration of commitment and goodwill, but they remain promised as long as they are not translated in deeds and achievements on the ground. The credibility of all actors here gathered today is at stake. Excellencies and distinguished delegates, I would also like to use this opportunity to stress the importance of restructuring our financing mechanisms, as well as creating an enabling environment for both public and private sectors financing. I call upon all stakeholders, including financial institutions, the private and public sector, civil society, and other institutions to join us in the implementation of IDEA. As I conclude, I wish to assure you of the full commitment.
Size will go from $7 trillion today to $57 trillion by 2050. As African countries face down subsidies for fossil fuels, especially for transport, the need for transitioning transport systems towards the demand for compressed natural gas has increased. New market opportunities are emerging, as market revenue for green hydrogen is estimated to grow from roughly $5 billion in 2022
to $134 billion in 2032. To tap into these developments and speed up its own transition to net zero emissions, Africa must accelerate investments in green infrastructure. Yet a major challenge is the lack of bankable projects. And that is why the African Development Bank, Africa 50, the African Union, and other partners launched the Alliance for Green Infrastructure in Africa, AGIA. Can you hear me? At COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. AGIA will raise $100 million for project preparation, $400 million for project development, and mobilize $10 billion into green infrastructure investments by the private sector. Since the launch of AGIA 1 year ago, we have moved quickly to expand partnerships around the initiative. I'm delighted, therefore, that right here in this room today, our initial group of strategic partners who will be signing memorandums of intent to invest in AGIA for a total of $175 million. This includes the governments of Germany. Thank you, Madam Minister, for being here. The government of France, merci beaucoup. The government of Japan, arigato gozaimasu. And other financial institutions, including the African Development Bank, our own bank, the West African Development Bank, Mr. President, nice to see you. The Arab Bank for Economic Development, Badia. Thank you to see you, Mr. President. Propaco and the Three Kinds Group. Thank you very much. And of course, discussions are going on for additional pledges that we expect to reach $100 million by early next year. I would like to also recognize the Soro Economic Development Fund because they've shown tremendous interest in this. I would like to call on other several partners here today and investors to please join us in this green journey for Africa. Today, indeed, is a journey, milestone on our green journey in Africa with very concrete commitments. AGIA expects to reach a first financial close by early next year. AGIA is a game changer for Africa. I would like to commend my special envoy for AGIA, former Minister Amadou Hott, for a great job in getting us here today. Together with my two vice presidents, Kevin Kariki, Solomon Quenya, Africa's 50 CEO, Alane Bobise, and of course, the Honorary Commissioner for Energy and Infrastructure of the African Union. Thank you for all your work and that of your teams. You have all worked so hard, so thank you. Together, let's secure the future for green investments in Africa. Thank you very much and welcome.
Thank you for that, President Dr. Deshina. And now we are going to get very brief remarks from the following speakers, starting with Germany. Germany's Sven Schulz, the Minister of Economic Development and Cooperation. Please welcome.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. You all know the world is facing central energy challenges that needs to be resolved by the middle of the century. We need to meet the growing energy demand. We need the decarbonization of the global economy and reducing social inequality, especially gender inequality. Worldwide, around 675 million people have no access to electricity. Almost 80% of them living in sub-Saharan Africa. But only 2% of global investment in renewable energy has been made in Africa. On the other hand, around 40% of the renewable energy's potential worldwide is in Africa. So therefore, I assume a great opportunity for long-term expansion of cooperation in this area. And Germany is a leading partner for the implementation of a socially just energy transition. At the African Climate Summit, the African states have expressed a truly bold vision on the energy transition. And as, without a doubt, the expansion of renewable energies required a joint international effort We already have launched the Africa EU Green Energy Initiative last year as an anchor of the European-African Energy Partnership. And Germany is aimed to provide 4 billion as part of this initiative. In doing so, we want to strengthen Africa's initiative and expand our partnership with Africa for a just energy transition and access to sustainable energy. We want to create a framework for mobilizing private capital. We want to create synergies with the accelerated program for renewables in Africa and contribute to Africa's aim to accelerate the expansion of renewables. Additionally, I'm pleased to jointly support the Alliance for Green Infrastructure in Africa. I congratulate AFDB on this important Africa-led alliance and want to specifically highlight Algeria's commitment to the 1.5-degree target and its dedication to net zero emissions. Supporting the alliance's important work, we are planning to contribute up to 26 million euros to Algeria starting in 2025. Here we will support the funding of Algeria's venture capital fund, engaging in the sectors of green infrastructure. And all this shows Germany recognized the extraordinary importance of a just and equitable green transition in Africa, and it is a reliable partner. We stand for cooperation of equals and for joint sustainable development and intensive collaboration that I look forward in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Madam Minister. Our next speaker is from France, Jean-Christophe Donnelier. Thank you. Let's give a round of applause to Jean.
Your Excellencies, Ministers, distinguished guests, Mr. President of the African Development Bank, on behalf of Bruno Le Maire, the French Minister for Economy and Finance, and Emmanuel Belin, the French Governor for France to the African Development Bank, it's really my pleasure to participate to this event. Let me first thank our host and partner, the African Development Bank, and his president. Today is a very important day, actually, for all of us, and I'm glad to be here with other contributors to demonstrate our strong support to the Alliance for Green Infrastructure in Africa and its ambitions. It is crucial to demonstrate that the initiative is moving forward and that our project, our common ambition, is becoming operational only 1 year after his announcement at COP27. As you know, France has been supportive of Algeria since its assumption, and we are glad that the summit for a new global financing pact held in Paris in June has helped to further raise momentum for the initiative. Financing of sustainable infrastructure and private sector mobilization were two major elements of the summit. Algeria is actually a concrete response to these two objectives in proposing a transformational approach for IFIs to climate finance projects in Africa. Indeed, we are convinced that by addressing the gap in green infrastructure project preparation and development financing, Algeria will play an instrumental role in Africa's transition to net zero. We particularly welcome Algeria's action to mobilize financing at the early stages of a project where it is most needed, in particular to give reassurance to the private sector. Through our contribution to Algeria, France is hoping to help channeling concessional funding towards structuring and developing locally led infrastructure projects and leverage significant sustainable investment on the African continent, which is a top priority for France. As such, I am delighted to announce a contribution of 20 million euros to AGR. Thank you. And we hope that our contribution will help catalyzing more private and concessional resources to reach the ambition. Along with this contribution, we would like to welcome again the work done by the AGIAD's team to structure this initiative in such a short period again, congratulate the team, and especially on the progress made since last June, and which is the best for the future, for the coming years. Let me, to conclude, in ensuring all of you that you can count on France mobilization and support to the bank's activities and innovations for a greater impact all over the African continent to meet the various challenges in the years ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Jean-Christophe. Our next speaker is from Japan. And from Japan, we've got Tomoyoshi Yuhagi, Deputy Vice Minister of Finance. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Excellencies and distinguished colleagues, let me express my heartfelt congratulations on the launch of the Alliance for Green Infrastructure in Africa, or Asia. It is a great honor for me to be here today with you on behalf of the Japanese government. Climate change is one of the greatest challenges facing Africa today. The continent's development prospects depends on greenhouse gas reductions as well as climate resilience, which requires more financial resources. We expect that Asia, in cooperation with several global partners, will play a key role in this regard by scaling up financing for green and climate-resilient infrastructure projects. As part of the pledge made by Prime Minister Kishida yesterday, Japan will provide $10 million to the project preparation window of Asia to support Africa in undergoing just and equitable transition to net zero and achieving the 1.5 degrees pathways. We encourage other donors to follow suit. We will continuously advance this important initiative in close cooperation with the AFDB, other key institutions, and like-minded countries. Thank you so much.
Arigato gozaimasu. Thank you so much. We've got the next stage, which is going to be very, very brief. I want to call on the heads of institutions, and please, not more than 1 minute of your remarks. And straight on, let me invite Sid Otab, President of Badea, please. 1 minute, please.
Thank you, sir. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, allow me at the outset to congratulate President Adesina for this excellent initiative to set up AGIA, and to thank all the partners who have already announced their contribution to AGIA and those who will do very soon. The Arab Bank for Economic Development in Africa, Badea, has pledged $40 million to support AGIA. Thank you.
Well done. You are hearing those figures. A big round of applause. All right, let's see who the next speaker, whether they're going to match that. Who is the lucky next speaker? The next speaker. Okay, the next speaker is Saj Eku. Saj Eku, President of...
Your Excellencies, Sir President of Republic of Comores, Madagascar, newly elected, dear Excellencies, my brother, President Adesina, dear Minister of Development of Germany, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor for me. It's a real great honor for me. As you know, we've been supporting AGR from inception. The reason being the way this platform, this initiatives has been set is exactly the way we foster and the same vision we have for development. Africa is a land of development, but Africa needs to do things differently, smartly, with large volumes of capital. We need funds, we need capital. We have the expertise, and we trust this alliance geared and managed by the Honorable Minister Amadou Hott. We trust that this initiative will be a success. So I will disappoint you. I'm sorry for that. I will disappoint you. My board of shareholders has not validated yet the amount. But President Adesina knows how ambitious Bewade is and how ambitious I am personally. So I'm sure he knows that we will do our very best not to disappoint him. All right? So thank you very much. And trust us, trust Bewade, we will be there. Thank you.
We are moving very fast because we know our heads of state are going to be leaving very soon. So, next on the agenda, we are told that Remy Roux from Agence France du Développement, not here. So next is Mimi Alemayehu, Senior Advisor at the Keynes Group. Yes, welcome.
Good evening, everybody, and Your Excellencies. Three Cairns Group is really excited to be here and to support AGIA and what it can achieve for the continent to catalyze economic development and green infrastructure in Africa. I think President Adesina already said quite a lot, that more risk-tolerant early-stage equity is what is required to increase the number of clean energy projects across the continent. We commend the leadership of Africa 50, Alain, and of course Amadou Hott, and of course your leadership, President Adesina, for this. Congratulations again.
Thank you so much for that, Mimi. That is Mimi from the Three Cairns Group. And let me now invite the CEO of Africa 50, Hélène Ebobisse, and then we've got the EU Vice President, please. Okay, very well.
Let me take over.
Yes, come on, yes, exactly. Okay.
It's a pleasure to invite His Excellency, the new Senior Vice President of the European Union. Very happy to hear him.
No, thank you very much. This is when you see how good it is when commissioners are working together, be it from African Commission or European Commission. I know that we are under lots of pressure and you like the big numbers here, but I have to start with a personal confession. I spent my best years as a diplomat in Africa, and I brought from there the most precious gift. My daughter Martina was born there. So forever, Africa is in my heart. And therefore, I'm, of course, extremely pleased that we can cooperate with you so closely on making our planet healthier, greener, and therefore we are very proud partners of you, be it in trade, in investment, but also in the green transition. And now the big number, because I know that we are under lots of pressure, and the Excellencies, Presidents, I'm sure would have a further program, but I'm very proud to announce that we are going to support the Africa-EU green energy by a big sum, 20 billion with B euros until 2027. And this big sum with B is the result of the Team Europe. And I really would like to thank my colleague from Germany, but also from other member states to make it happen. And I have here the whole list of fantastic projects which we can support with this money, but I'm not going to read it because I know that we are under time pressure. But thank you very much for that great cooperation, for fantastic atmosphere, and for all that plans we have together for the future, because this is what the COP is about. Thank you very much.
So now you know why we were keeping, the EU for, because it's a big B, huh? It's not an M, it's a B.
How much is it for a gear? How much is it for a gear?
It's for Africa.
Okay. Please don't leave me. We want to take a family photo and do the signing. Yes. I beg your pardon? FDB. Yeah, but we need to hear from Elena Bobise first. Yes, let's welcome the CEO of Africa 50, Elena Bobise.
Look, my chairman has spoken, Dr. Adesina, so I don't have anything else to say. Other than that, Africa 50 thanks all the financiers, all the investors. We will be the fund manager for the Project Development Fund. Thank you for your trust. We mean that we are going to work very hard to deliver, to build the pipeline of bankable project. Thank you very much, and thank you. That's it.
I was asking my boss how much. Okay, we've got one more announcement, and this is from the African Development Bank Group. Let me ask Vice President Solomon Quaina, and then we'll go to the signing. Thank you.
So good evening, Your Excellencies. Good evening, my boss. And good evening, everybody else. So Serge, I would leverage your approach. So we have all not gone to our boards yet, but the difference is I'm going to signal what we intend to commit. Because President Adesina does not believe that leadership should not have skin in the game. Put your money where your mouth is. So we plan to work towards contributing $40 million.
Okay, thank you so much. Now we are approaching the signing of the ceremony because our heads of state want to leave. And therefore, let me, I know everybody's pressured up. So in terms of coming to sign, let me just get my order very well. Okay, so just to say that we've got three partners who've already signed, and that is, we've got Propaco, France, and 3 Keynes Foundation. They've already signed. That's how urgent, that's how quick they were. And therefore, let's give them a round of applause. So may I now call upon the President of the African Development Bank Group, Dr. Akumi Adesina, for the signing. Come and show you the sign. Okay. And the next one to come and sign. Yes, a round of applause. Yes. Yes, exactly. You stay here, yes. Exactly, yes. Elena Bobise, you're the next one to sign. The ministers are coming. There's an order for the ministers.
That's the founding.
Yes. So we are going with the founding members first. If you can allow the moderator to do his job, it will be very good. Yes, please. Yeah. Thank you. That's done. Thank you. Now let's get our ministers to come and do the signing. Let's start with the minister from Germany. Thank you. Thank you. And let's get a representative from Japan, please, Tomoyoshi. As I said, France had already signed, so I will just ask Jean-Christophe to join the line. Yes, and now let's get other institutions to sign as well. Let me call upon the president of BADEA, Seydou. Thank you. And let me call upon the president of board, if you are here, Saj. Where is Saj? Yes, okay, very well. That's it.
And then you just call Mimi.
Yes. Right. May I call upon Mimi to join the group because you had already signed. So join the group there. Yes. Okay, you can ceremonially sign, and then we are going to a family photo. Okay, let's now get, yes, let's get a family photo. Thank you, Solomon, please join. Yes. Thank you so much. As they take the family photo, I really want to recognize once again we were graced by the presence. Yes, okay, they're going to hold hands. This is what Dr. Deshina normally calls the baobab tree effect. Yes, so be ready, photographers. Don't miss this moment. It's the baobab effect. All right? Okay, move, spread this way. Okay. Let's do it. Okay. A big round of applause there. Thank you. Thank you so much, the chairman of the African Union, the president of the Union of the Comoros, Azalia Soumani, president of Madagascar, Andre Rogelina. Thank you so much, distinguished guests. Thank you.
They've gone. Yes. But they've gone. Please, let us pursue our agenda. Please, we still have a segment. My brother, how are you? Very well. Please. No, we have to finish because some people came from outside. We just 5 minutes. No, they were not. They came from outside. They are from institution. They are waiting since. You see? Please, We still have the last session to go. Please take your seat. No, the people are here. Yeah, no problem. I've removed you.
Let me shout. Let me move them.
Please, we want to continue. Let's complete our meeting, our day, African Day. Please, let us finish our meeting.
We are about to start our next session. Please take your seats.
Let me call His Excellency Elias Pendi Magozi to come here in the podium. Executive Secretary of SADC Secretariat. His Excellency Honorable Engineer Collins Nzovi, Minister, Green Economy and Environment, Zambia. Are they still around?
Photographers, can you please take your seat? The next session is about to start.
Please, let us start the ministerial segment.
Can we please start the next session? Please respect
the next
the speaker.
and the last session.
Please take your seats. Please respect the speaker and take your seats.
Professor Benedict Orama, President of Afrexim Bank. His Excellency George Rebelo Pinto Chikoti, Secretary General of OAPS CPS. Her Excellency Laila Benali, Minister, Energy Transition and Sustainable Development, Kingdom of Morocco. Mr. Mikika Mwenga, Executive Director, Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance. and Amonji Jacqueline, Chairperson, African Parliamentarian for Climate Action Network. Please come in front, the panelists. This is my bag.
I think maybe we should put it on there.
I think our speakers are already ready. Please, can you sit down? Please, can you sit down? Let us finish the last session, the ministerial. So the topics that we are going to discuss, it's about status of climate negotiation, energy transition and renewable energy, climate finance, adaptation and resilience, driving ambition, global stocktake, outcome of African Climate Summit, and the CCDDA. So I will start with His Excellency Elias Mpendi Magozi, the Executive Secretary of SADC Secretariat. Is he around? Honorable? SADC? I don't see. The next one is... yes.
Come, yeah.
Thank you very much, our director of this evening. I think it's an evening now. I don't think there is a lot to say from us, and from me specifically after listening to the pledges that were made here. And I think late in this day right now, as a representative of a regional economic body. But I just want to highlight a few things. And I'll be speaking to the activity that just concluded here. As a REC, first, this is a celebration of Africa, and we appreciate all the statements that have been made about celebrating Africa. We do have climate change that affects us, even as we celebrate. We do have challenges that we deal with as a region, and I believe by extension, the African continent. Now, when I listen to pledges that have been put before us here, one side of me, as a REC representative, it's an exciting commitment, one that we are all looking forward to. All the implications of climate change that have actually happened within the region of SADC. When member states hear of these pledges and resources that have been made for the continent, it can only be bringing hope to those people that are in the rural areas, in the villages, that do not have bridges, that do not have the reticulation services for water to pass. When we do have natural disasters, they are the first to lose their lives. There's a movie that I watched many years ago. It's by, what is this young man called? It's called Jerry Maguire. If anybody could remember that movie. The movie is saying, show me the money. Show me the money. So with all these pledges that have been made, people in Malawi that lost lives, that lost infrastructure, that lost all their livelihoods, all that they are looking for is show me the money. As people say in my part of the world, people don't eat pledges. People don't sleep on pledges. People eat food. They're dealing with humanitarian issues. Their lives are at stake. So how do we go beyond the pledges like the ones that have been shared with us here this evening? Showing the money makes a difference to people in our region, to people, I believe, in the continent, those that are at the receiving end of climate change. We are here talking climate change with all its implications and impacts. The second thing I want to talk to, and I think President Adesina spoke to as well, and I think a few others, it's about bankability. As Africans, the presidency have been talking about Africa working together, coming together, and so forth. My message has always been, in all the messages, Africa must love herself first before others can love Africa. We must love our people first before others can love us. We must love our youth, our women, before others can come and love us. We must appreciate our private sector and love our private sector and trust our private sector that they can also do what has been done here. The extent to which we engage our private sector to come and play ball makes a difference. So let's start with ourselves. If we are producing products, we still buy products outside. What is it that we need to do to actually create value in the continent? We're celebrating Africa again. I believe these are some of the things that we need to change. Bankability is a big, big challenge. Preparing projects, particularly for bankability for private sector to run with them. At least in the SADC region, that's a challenge that we want to pursue. And I heard President Adesina and others that there are something close to about 400 million that will go towards assisting bankability. And I'm looking forward to that part of the money trickling down to our part of the continent so we can actually expedite bankability. We have serious challenges of electricity in our subcontinent. South Africa, those of you who are close to South Africa, they've got load shedding, including my country, Botswana. What South Africa is going through, all it just requires is just to link South Africa to the Southern Africa power pool, and we have solved the issue of South Africa. The excess capacity that is in Angola and Malawi and Mozambique, is it Mozambique? Yes, I think it's Mozambique. Once we add this into the grid, into our pool, then we can assist our sister country so that small businesses cannot lose their livelihoods, their jobs, and so forth. So bankability is a critical thing. I think the last thing, so I'm not going to be long because I just want to leave messages with ourselves. I was discussing this morning at another forum that when I listen to the statements, it's more about Africa has potential. Africa should do this. Africa should do that. Africa should do that. And I think we've been saying this since I was young. My hair is now white. Africa still has potential. The messaging is still the same. I was listening in the last 2 days about what we are going to do to address climate change. The statements we make today, the actions we take today will make a difference on whether we will exist or we will perish. Don't talk about our next generation. The steps we take today will determine our own retirement, what we'll retire to. What does our retirement look like, and our children and our grandchildren, whether they will be existing in this world. So the actions that we take, the money, show me the money, the decisions we take, and it's mostly political leaders, and I believe a few of ourselves, that can influence and make those things happen. Enough of statements, in my view. Show me the money, show me action, then we can succeed, and others can succeed after us. I thank you.
Thank you, Executive Secretary. Enough of statements. Let's go for action, action, action. You are really my true brother from the same constituency. I believe in that, and you said it rightly. And what we are here, when we look at people in the southern region, we are really having a lot of challenges. We have water stress, drought, so I think we need to speed up and improve the livelihoods of our citizens. We are leaders. We are not working for us, but we are working for the community. And we should be proud that, we should try and fight and strive that we should remove poverty as our first name. When we look at the data reports from the World Bank, poverty, Africa, this is our first name, or maybe surname. So let us remove it as leaders and to leave a better future for the next generation. I think we need to do it. We had two big shocks that just passed through us since 2020. COVID-19, there are a lot of lessons learned from COVID-19, mostly in the sector where I am a commissioner, food security. When we wanted to import food, because we are net importers, 38 countries in Africa are importing food. They live in importing food with the all potential we have in Africa. So I think our people deserve more than that. They deserve to have at least, a medium class, standard of living. It's not admissible that countries that are very rich, and even in the urban community, they don't have access to water, no access to electricity. So the next speaker is, let me call the representative of my colleague, Dr. Amani, to take the floor. Over to you, Director. Is mine or yours? Okay.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Commissioner Ambassador Sako, Excellency Ministers, Excellency Heads of Regional Economic Communities, distinguished delegates. Last year, when we went to COP27, we as Africans went to speak with one voice. We came up with the common position on energy, African common position on energy access and energy transition. We are still echoing the same message coming to COP28 because we believe what that common position contained is what Africa needs out of all these COP discussions. We need to still continue addressing the number of our citizens who still don't have access to electricity. The figure is well known. It's repeated in most of all the events or meetings we have. We also need to address the number of our citizens who still don't have access to clean cooking. What does it mean? We should stop using the traditional, or we should move away from using the traditional. The 900 million citizens who use firewood or charcoal for cooking and move to cleaner fuels like gas. It's a difficult discussion, but this is what Africa should push for. We still need to push for financial resources, in particular climate financing, for us to be able to invest in the renewable technologies which are available: solar, wind, green hydrogen, etc. I appreciate the statement made by the Executive Secretary of SADC. We still have a deficit, for example, in the southern region. And I'm aware from reports and discussions we've been having with the Southern African Power Pool, there's almost a deficit of 11,000 megawatts in the Southern African Power Pool. So we need to accelerate development of generating capacity, connect the grids, promote power trading within the regions, within the countries and the regions. It's for this reason the African Union has come up with the Africa Single Electricity Market, together with the Continental Power System Master Plan, which is being implemented by the African Union Commission as well as AUDA NEPAD, together with the support of the partners. And recently, in the ministerial meeting of ministers responsible for energy and transport held in September, adopted the strategic plan of the Africa Single Electricity Market. This creates the largest single electricity market in the world, involving 55 member states. We do hope by the time the Africa Single Electricity Market comes operational in 2040, we'll be able to trade and have a market of electricity trading within the member states, in the power pools or the regional economic communities, but beyond. So in countries or regions where they have excess electricity, they'll be able to trade to countries, for example, the southern region, which has a deficit of electricity. These are all initiatives at the continental level, which we, as African member states, went and pushed for during the COP27. Our message still is the same. Coming to COP28, great strides have been made. We've seen it manifested just a while ago, over 200 million of commitments to support the Alliance for Green Infrastructure in Africa, which is a project preparation facility and development fund for funding preparation of projects to bankability. We anticipate that those resources will go a long way in preparing our projects to bankability. one of the elements which was touched upon in the remarks which was made by the Executive Secretary, on the issue of do we have projects which are ready for investment? Yes, we do have a pipeline of PIDA, Program for Infrastructure Development, interregional projects on all the different sectors, including energy, transmission lines, interconnectors, generations, etc. Our call should be, at this COP, we should have increased financial flows for Africa to be able to implement these renewable energy projects. We should have the technical cooperation as well as technology transfer to be able to tap into the new technologies. For example, green hydrogen. We should also be able to have capacity building for our experts, our nationals, to be able to operate, to manage some of these new technologies. Your Excellencies, I call upon us all to continue emphasizing on the message we came up with last year at the COP, echo the same message, make sure that it's well understood, and it's the only way that Africa will be able to become energy sufficient as well as achieve the objectives of having closing the energy gap. I thank you.
Thank you, Director. We took note of what our sister department is doing in terms of energy. You are doing a lot, but you should double more because we still have 600 million people in Africa that don't have access to electricity. I think we should mobilize more resources and look at it so that we can achieve by 2030 during our SDG, the end of SDG, we can achieve the minimum of a 30% access of our population that have access to electricity out of these 600 million people that don't have electricity. Thank you. The next is, I don't know if the Minister Collins from Zambia is still around. He's not around, so let me, Afrexim Bank, any representative of Afrexim Bank? Okay, you have the floor.
Good evening, colleagues. I'll not take too much of your time. My name is Dennis Denya. I'm here representing Professor Benedict Orama, the President and Chairman of the Board of Directors of Afrexim Bank. All I want to say is that as an institution, we are focused on providing solutions to the demand side of this issue. We already have heard that there is an issue in terms of generating bankable projects. Afrexim Bank is a project preparatory fund that is already working. We have already supported projects worth $6 billion. So the project is up and running. The board is going to approve an increase in that project preparatory facility. So it will help in bringing to bankability projects that are focused on energy transition on the continent. Earlier on, we heard the Executive Secretary of the UN Economic Commission for Africa talk about the battery precursor project between DRC and Zambia. We are very much involved in that, and we are looking to do about 12 zones on the continent, working with Arise IPP and other financial institutions. So we work in partnership. We also have what we call an ECA facilitation program, which helps us attract money from the developed world, especially through their export credit agencies, to deal with the climate issues on the continent. Now, our board also approved in July of this year concessional fund of about $100 million, which will help in terms of providing blended finance on the continent. In addition to our guarantees programs, which helps in de-risking, therefore attracting private sector funding into this area. Governments alone do not have the capacity to provide the funding that is required, so you need the private sector to come in. So how do you get them to come in? You de-risk, you provide funding for the riskier early part of the project. So that is what we are working on as Afrexim Bank. We are working on making sure the projects come on board and also attracting the funding that is necessary to do that. We are the biggest promoter of the African Continental Free Trade Area. And this agreement is the biggest effort by Africans to decarbonize, because we are going to locate the production and processing nearer the source of raw materials. It reduces the emissions. Currently, we ship raw materials to Europe, to China for processing. Then we import the processed from there. Now, focusing on the AFCTA, we are going to produce on the continent. So that is going to help in the decarbonization. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, the representative of Afrexim Bank. And you're right, because my former life was in coffee. We grow coffee, we send it there, and then we buy again coffee, you know, and we sell it at less than $1. But when we go and buy just 250 grams on shelves of a supermarket, it's $15. So we are losing opportunities. Thank you very much. And I would also like to commend your bank to assist us in our initiative of the agro parks that we are building in Africa. We want to have a food bread basket on the continent, and we want food sovereignty in our continent. I think we can reach that target. The next, I think, is His Excellency George Rebelo Pinto Chikoti, my dear cousin, the Secretary General of the OACPS. Over to you, Minister Chikoti.
I just wanted to thank you, first of all, for inviting us here today, and just say that this is really a great day for Africa, and to congratulate you for such an important day. And I saw the commitments and the pledges that were made. I think we are really pleased with that, and that honors Africa. I think that the commitments taken by the different countries that took the floor and signed the pledges, I think that was a particularly wonderful thing. And we also have to congratulate the President of the African Development Bank. And I hope that all that money can really help Africa to build its infrastructures. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed, good afternoon. It is with profound pleasure that the Organization of African and Caribbean Pacific States takes the floor to address you here on Africa Day at COP28. Let me thank the African Union Commission for this opportunity. The OACPS has 79 member states. Out of them, 38 are seats who are distributed along the major oceans of the world, in the Atlantic Ocean, in the Pacific Ocean, some of the smallest countries, some of the smallest economies. And therefore, coming to this environment, it's indeed a very important occasion for us. But we also have 48 African nations of sub-Saharan Africa, some of which face most of the most difficult conditions in terms of climate, drought, floods, and all that. And those are the challenges that we do face in our organization. And I think that this is really an occasion at COP28 to talk about all the challenges that we face. Scientific findings show that worsening climate impacts will increase and may usher irreversible tipping points unless we take urgent, ambitious, and sustained emissions reduction measures immediately to keep the Paris Agreement objectives alive. Africa, Caribbean, and Pacific countries contribute just 2% of the global greenhouse gas emissions, yet we remain ambitious in our climate action for the sake of peoples and the planet. We do have in our countries a wealth of unique ecosystems, including vast tropical forests and oceans ecosystems that provide quick wins for carbon sequestration. We are committed to safeguarding this natural heritage for the sake of planetary health and for future generations. COP28 is not just a negotiation platform. It is also a call to action for global solidarity to face the climate emergency. It is imperative the international community prioritizes the needs and concerns of our vulnerable nations, including providing financial support, facilitating technology transfer, and promoting capacity building initiatives. Climate finance that does not increase debt burdens for developing countries. It should prioritize grants and highly concessional finance over non-concessional loans and other forms of finance, and ensure that climate finance is additional to long-standing ODA commitments and standards. At COP28, we continue to advocate for the principles of equity, inclusiveness, and build enduring trust towards achieving the objectives of the Paris Agreement. We have great optimism that at COP28, the developed nations will deliver on their commitment to providing $100 billion in climate finance per year to support efforts for a revamp of the global multilateral financial institutions to address the climate crisis. We are encouraged by the positive signal given at the opening of COP28 with the agreement of the Loss and Damage Fund and pledges made. What is utmost importance for the OACPS members is strengthening the ability to build resilience and adapt to the adverse impacts of climate change. In this regard, at COP28, we continue to stress the need to double adaptation finance by 2025. We also call on developed countries to increase ambition of their NDCs in line with the 1.5 degrees Paris Agreement goal. COP28 is an opportunity to demonstrate the spirit of partnership and our commitment to climate action. As we join the African Union to celebrate Africa Day today, OACPS reaffirms commitment to work together and to speak with one strong voice on the issues of pertinence and priority to us. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, with these words, I would like to thank you all for your attention. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, SG Minister Shikoti, for your statement. We would like to have a copy for our record because it's very rich. We know that you really went through all what we need in the two regions, the Pacific and Africa. So this is very important because there's a lot of similarity. And today, with all these shocks, we cannot walk alone. We have to walk, all of us together. We have to collaborate and go together hand in hand. Thank you very much for that. And we look forward to really strengthen our cooperation between my department and your department in the agenda of climate change. The next speaker is Mr. Mitika Mwenda, Executive Director, Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance. Over to you, Honorable.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. And it is always very difficult when you are speaking almost the last, because either you find the empty seats or you find everything has been spoken, what you are to speak. So it is very difficult. But I'm really inspired by the statements from our heads of states and all the speakers who have spoken, because most of the things which they have spoken are things which we as the civil society in Africa have been talking about. The issues of promises after promises, unmet pledges, and my brother from Sandek has just put it very right. If we are able to implement, Commissioner, what we have been talking about, what we have been pledging, then we would not be here. And I just want to mention one that today I was encouraged by the excitement by everyone when each stood here and they said, we are going to give this money. We are going to give, in fact, the biggest applause was from the EU when he said, we are going to pledge 20 billion euros. Everybody rose. But you know, for us, we are very cautious and we welcome it, but we refuse to celebrate. Let me tell you why. In Paris, in 2015, the negotiations were very, very difficult. And because the African group is a very strong bloc, they couldn't have a deal, the Paris Agreement, before if Africa did not want. It's a very, very powerful bloc. So what did they do? They went into a room and they told Africans, you guys, the G7, the group of 7, we are going to give Africa 10 billion US dollars for 10 gigawatts of energy, and everybody was excited. In our program called African Renewable Energy Initiative, we realized that we are going to light the whole of Africa. Today is when, 7 years later, tell me how many gigawatts have been delivered. But when you go to the records of Germany, they tell you we have delivered 4 billion of infrastructure in Africa of energy. Then we look at that money. Where is it? We can't find it. My friend here was talking about we need to see it. Are we feeling it? Is that human at the local level feeling it? Energy poverty is in fact increasing. These are the problems which we have. Let us be cautious on these celebrations. I come again yesterday, now going to, because we are talking about the negotiations. The day before, it's yesterday, it was celebrations all over. That we have delivered 460 million US dollars for loss and damage fund. And everybody was, those who give the money now have known the game. Even before we start negotiations, they come with the numbers. And we are blinded, that everything is obscured, and then we are saying, as PAGJA, again, be cautious. We are not going to celebrate that once again. Why? There is one player, I am talking about this. That is 460 million US dollars. Whether it is going to be delivered or not, let's assume that it is going to be delivered. But remember, the framework which is going to deliver that has been made so difficult that even accessing that money is going to be very difficult. Remember, the whole, it has been set by the Transition Committee for the loss and damage, is the first if it is going to be delivered, the country to get a coin is 2028 by COP28. Those OECD countries, the small islands, most of them will have sunk by that time. There will be no one even to take that money. That is where we are. And so, even then, it has been made so difficult that they may even those who will be there, they may not even get it. That is the trick. Those are the tactics. Then finally, we also got the pledge of what we call the 100 billion US dollars. I want to tell you just again, we celebrated this in 2009. So one of our partners, when 2 weeks ago, the OECD reported that they have delivered 10 billion. I don't know whether you have seen it in the small islands. As in Africa, I don't know whether, Commissioner, you have seen it. Me, I don't know. But now let me tell you, one of our partners called One Campaign carried a very deep analysis and under very stark findings. Nearly 2/3 of climate finance commitment counted by the OECD between 2013 and 2021, that is a staggering $343 billion US dollars, mark you, are never reported as disbursed or a literal connection to climate. So they say we have delivered, but that is not climate finance because we know the principles of climate finance. To make it worse, according to this report, over $1 in every $5 of climate finance commitments in this OECD open data set between 2013 and 2021 worth 115 billion is spent on things that have little to do with climate. These are realities. Number two, bilateral providers consistently report far less in disbursement than they have committed. And then, less than half of climate finance they committed between 2013 and 2021 was reported as disbursed or was meaningfully related to climate finance, a difference of 135 billion. Then, in 2021, the world's 20 most climate vulnerable countries received 6.5, that is especially from Africa and OECD and your countries, is 6.5% of the climate finance they need each year to address climate finance. So that is where we are. And then we are here celebrating. I wish the EU guy was here. I don't know whether it was EU or Germany. I wish he was here because I can bet that what he has planned, 20 billion euros, will never see the light of the day until Jesus goes and comes back. So what we need to do is we need our leaders to be very bold. We need to put pressure on them. I have heard all the pledges. I have not heard anything about adaptation. Adaptation finance, that is the priority for Africa. Everyone now is talking about loss and damage. We have forgotten the real issues for Africa. Though loss and damage is very important, we have delivered that. We need really not to be diverted. Attention should not be diverted. We need them to deliver on their promises on adaptation and mitigation, of course, because they need deep emission reduction and not transferring the burden of action to us through forced solutions to Africa that we are going to pay you so that we can continue living our profligate lifestyles. No, we need to say no, and the climate finance money is not charity. It is their obligation. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Mitika, for your position, and we buy in. Well, that's what we can tell you. We buy in your position, and we quite agree that really we are not children when you say, if you are crying, I'll give you sweet, and then when the child has a sweet and keeps quiet. No, when we promise, you promise. Because when you are pledging, you have to, comply with what you are giving us. But also, this is a lesson. One thing is that we have to take our destiny in front. Let us start, at least if you have a project, if you can invest 80% of your own domestic funds, and then if you cannot finish, you go the 20% and tell the partner, I think it's more viable. But you go there and say, this is my project, I don't have anything. When you come to COP like this, you are paying a room for $1,500, you have money. You really have money, because if you calculate the time we are here, in here in COP20, 10 days, it's about 10,000 something, $14,000, for 10 days. This $14,000, if you go to a village, you will change the life of somebody. You will change the life of women. You change poverty. So I think those are the type of things that we need to reflect. Last year, we were in Sharm el-Sheikh, a room, $2,000 a day. I stayed 10 days, $20,000. And when I came out from there, no result. Just pictures. We take picture like, President Ruto used to say, we just go, we take picture, we put there. Nothing substantial. So I told them last year in Sharm el-Sheikh, I said, look, my fellow brothers, let's do what Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana did. The biggest producers of cocoa. And there was a big conference in Belgium. They boycotted it because it was not of their interest. And those two markets, they are about 70% of cocoa export globally. So they just boycotted. So we should not waste our money, because this is a taxpayer. In the Western country, they say taxpayers, but when we come, like in the UN, African Union, it is our countries that contribute to the budget. This is taxpayer. What are we bringing to change, to transform the life of those poor people, those vulnerable people, the islands? They are crying. If you go to Cape Verde, you go to all these small islands, they're even afraid of their life. Exactly. So what are we doing? What are we coming to do here? If we boycott, look at what we did in Kenya. What we did. That one was a COP, more than the one we did in Glasgow. About 32-something thousand people participated. Let's have our own COP and take our destiny in front. So my sister, Honorable Amonji, so you have the floor. You can come and share with us what you parliamentarians are doing.
So, thank you, Excellencies, and my fellow panelists, ladies and gentlemen. I am going to be really almost the last speaker, and being the last speaker, almost everything is being mentioned. But nevertheless, like I've been introduced, I chair the African Parliamentarians Network on Climate Action, and I will be speaking basically following our legislative roles as members of parliament following climate action in the different parts of Africa. First of all, one thing we have to appreciate that Africa is endowed. It's not that everyone says that Africa has the potential, that it's a lie, it's endowed. But I want to give my experience. I've been a member of parliament for the last 15 years. I went to parliament when I was 24. When I'm going to campaign, I go to a constituency, a village, and I get like 100 people seated. You know what I will do? Because I need the votes. I will give my manifesto, but because they want water, I will say, okay, these are 100 people. If I gave each one $1, it wouldn't make impact. But if I announce a block amount, I'll have more impact. And so what I would do is I will speak, and I know that everyone has expectations of what I'll give at the end of the day, because they come from far places, and they will be like, okay, we want a soda to take. So I will say for this village, so I'm leaving, let's say, 10,000 Uganda shillings. And everyone will clap the loudest. And obviously, I will go. But eventually, when these people divide this money, it's actually a peanut. But for me, I would have achieved my purpose. And so yesterday I attended the opening. I listened to the different leaders making commitments today, and it is going to continue up the 12th when we close. I can assure you, those commitments are politically pronounced. And then the people who want to hear clap even the hardest. They think that 24 billion is a lot of money. So for us, these commitments, when they are not translated into action, remain nothing. And I am so perplexed. I started attending COPs when I was 20, I think I was 32. And right now I don't want to pronounce my age because women don't talk about their age. Yes, definitely, if I went to Parliament when I was 24 and I'm now in my third term, it means that I am actually growing younger. So that means these pronouncements, to me as a Ugandan, I'm giving an example of a parliamentarian in Uganda, and I'm one of the a bit informed who can follow issues in Uganda. These commitments remain at COP. And that's why I don't want to follow my presentation here, because everything that I was going to read has already been talked about by the previous speakers. But these commitments remain at the COPs. When I get down to the local communities which I represent, it is nothing. And that's why you see the pledges today that have been made are more into mitigation rather than adaptation. And then me, who represents the local women there, actually, I am a mother, and when there's no food at home in my community or in my household, they will not ask my husband about the food. They will ask me, where is the food? So I will be the one cutting trees to make sure that I go and cook food and deliver food to the table. So I want to talk as a politician this time around. If we are not translating the gender thematic negotiation to have a more impact on the rural woman, on the young generation, the youth, we are actually wasting our mandate and our time. So we need to challenge the global south. That whereas Africa commits just less than 4%, it is getting the highest shocks in terms of flooding, landslides, name it. And when we get out of here, definitely the people in Uganda, the people in Senegal, the people in South Africa expect that there must be something tangible for Africa. And that means they expect that the African Union, an institution that leads the whole of these member states, is able to transcend something in terms of deliverables in the areas of adaptation, so that most of these monies can go to the local farmer. The rural woman can feel that she can also contribute towards climate, to be resilient to climate change. So to me, I think that one thing we must really come up with, I remember when I was a student, I wouldn't have to wait for protocol to get what I want. I would go and grab it, and I would get it. I think that's what we must do as Africa. Go grab. We will be in this whole arrangement, but we will not gain much. It's a time for us to have a sit down and look at whether COPs, bringing all of us together, is still very relevant, or we strengthen the Africa Climate Summits and agree on our issues at the African regional level. And then we look for our own, we settle our own challenges within our own context. Because these pronouncements are too huge for me. When I follow with the Minister of Finance of Uganda, and I always followed, I am an environmentalist, I'm a lawyer, I basically follow climate-related environment and votes in regards to climate and how much funding comes to Uganda. It's a lot of bureaucracy. It is our own loans. When the pronouncements are made here, they talk about bankable projects. Accessibility of this money is definitely very hard. Out of the 55 countries, the research we've done as parliamentarians, very few countries are even able to access just a mere global environment fund. And then 24 billion, big clap. Where is the 100 billion that was agreed upon in 2015? Do we know where it is? Can we, the loss and damage. Last year we agreed on loss and damage, right? Okay, somehow Africa celebrated. But hey, let us stop celebrating for now. For now, loss and damage must not be as a voluntary initiative. There must be principles put in place so that the loss and damage fund is as a matter of a must. Not just saying that I will contribute this as voluntary. No. In legal terms, you put something down and say, okay, this is a loss and damage fund. It has been agreed upon, and this is what will go to Africa, and A, B, C, D will contribute to the loss and damage fund. And so the modus operandi will be very open. So to me, and for us as parliamentarians following this particular thematic area, we are more concerned about the policies and legislations in countries. If we are talking about carbon markets, we are talking about renewable energy, we are talking about so many things, but translating all this into legislations in a country so that even when we are prioritizing, we have mandates in member country is still a big challenge. So for us, we are looking at what outcomes do we come up with at the COP, and how can this be translated in the member states. Now, I want to give you an example. We have 55 countries in Africa, but out of the 55 countries, just 3 countries have come up with climate legislations, and that is Uganda, Kenya, and recently, Nigeria. So when all these negotiations are agreed upon at the COPs, how do we domesticate all these outcomes of the negotiation into our member states so that we are seen to be taking action? For me, on behalf of the parliamentarians who are in the different meetings in the COP right now from Africa, I want to call upon all of us to stand up for Africa. And Frank Fanon once said that every generation must, out of relative obscurity, discover its historical mission and either fulfill it or betray it. So this is a time for Africa to stand up and be counted. And it's our time to either fulfill our generational demands or betray it, because we are all of us will be accountable. It's time for less talk, but more action. I thank you.
I think this is the end of our speakers. Honorable Jacqueline, thank you very much. We really appreciate your experience in this material, and it's a very important issue that we cannot undermine it, and we have to pursue with our revolution, because this is really a revolution that we have to do. Otherwise, this is a COP28. That's what I used to say in every COP. Are we going up to COP 1000? Are we going to be alive? And that 1,000 is our children. So please, let us stop the COPs, because it's not giving value to our poverty. It's not bringing any value. It's even worsening. I don't think COP, we should be mostly on the parliamentarian. We should be talking about it. Let us have every 2, even why are we having COP every year? Why not? Why can't it be every 2 years? So that when we come from really showing case, you know. We are not showing case. It's just parole, parole, palavre. Tout le temps les bavardages, as they say in French. Les bavardages, nous sommes fatigués. Nous sommes fatigués avec les bavardages. Hein? On est là, we are trying to really work hard for this continent, but on the other hand, you know, we don't see. African Union is an institution that we need to cherish. Other regions, they don't have African Union. African Union is an institution where the 55 countries, in African Union we are 55, UN we are 54, whatever. Let us respect principle. All of them are members of African Union. All of them are members of African Union. So this is a platform whereby we can come with one common position. And we need leaders that really love. Somebody was talking about it, I don't know, SADC. Let us appreciate Africa. Let us appreciate our private sector. Let us appreciate the livelihood of our farmers. Let us be concerned about poverty in the rural area. So that's what I'm saying. We have really that advantage to come out with one voice. But what type of leaders, what type of people do we engage in African Union? Many of the staff, they are working for partners instead of them to work for us. They are working with the agenda of partners because a project, you know, if a partner is funding it almost 100%, we have lost our priority because we are very good, you know, with initiative. But this initiative, they will just use our logo and say this is African Union that is doing. It's a lie. It's a lie. That's experience from my passage in African Union. And I'm writing a book. They will come. Oh, no, Great Green Wall. That's what I told the President Macky Sall. Today, Great Green Wall is no longer ours. Great Green Wall is UNDP, this, and they will go mobilize 40,000 million, I don't know. And we at the African Union, we don't even see it. We cannot even disseminate the result. We cannot even have a workshop, you know, with our people. Today, we are talking about this carbon market. We don't know what is carbon market. The mechanism of carbon market, we don't know. It's just, you know, like I remember 3 years ago, I was with a journalist. He said, but now, she's from South Africa. She said, now everybody, climate change, impact of climate change. Tomorrow, COVID. So your agenda is driving upon the thematic, you know, the thematic that comes to the market like this. That's why you're driving your agenda. So I don't think, you know, to me, it's better for us to have our own agenda. We have the Agenda 2063, which is our agenda. We have CADEP. CADEP is going to end in 2025. They started giving us money. They want to do our agenda. A policy for food security in Africa, we cannot allow it because this is sovereignty. Policy, it's ours. We have to do policy. When we finish our policy, we tell our partners, look, that's what we need. If we want to work with you, you have to align on what we are doing. That is why we are really building we are developing the new post-Malabo for the next 10 years, and we have to see why did Malabo did not work? Where are the gaps? And I need SADC. We had a meeting already. We discussed with all the RECs. I prefer to work with my RECs and my member states so that it should be demand-driven. Partners, NGO should come after. But before, we have to have our own. It's not because we don't have skill. We do have. Yeah? It's just a matter of Pan-Africanism, loving Africa, and then those are the type of leaders, even the new generation, that we need to put in African Union. Otherwise, we are going to sell African Union. I declare it closed. Thank you very much.